Hey guys, it's Mathel here once again, finally taking on something that people ask for all the freaking time, and that is Wild Strike. This time it's a Berserker in a sort of, can't lose DPS type situation, where you get all the rage nodes, the more damage nodes, pop on a Saviour, and maybe a bit of Abyssus for good measure, and you've got yourself all the damage you'll ever need, which is usually the problem that Wild Strike has. That it feels really good for clear, looks kinda cool, but doesn't have that much damage or single target. And that's the challenge to fix. Mostly, it's just fixable through a bunch of gear and big damage scaling. As I'm trying to do in this sort of build showcase, I'm going to try and make it do some single target, whether it costs a lot of money or not, but regardless of that, harvest crafting basically just lets you do everything that you want to do either way. Currently the character is still pretty humbly geared. It's in the process of having all of its shit harvest crafted to much finer degrees. It's just basically right now a Saviour, an Abyssus, some life resist gear, one curse on hit ring, and also my offhand is a level 38 leveling sword that has like 150 DPS. So all of that will actually just get you through maps comfortably all the way up into red tiers if you want. This is like a double beyond tier 10, I think, and the beyond bosses are instantly dying. So once I actually get the character to proper gear levels and all that, I think it's going to be shitting on the game extremely hard, and Wild Strike at the moment does seem to be pretty damn nice. This is with no Ancestral Call. I have one additional strike on gloves and Tribal Fury, so we still have 2 additional strikes, but it's currently 6 linked with damage supports. We also have Trinity support, the new Trinity support that gives 50 more LE damage and 20 penetration when you have full Trinity stacks up. For that to work, you only really need 2 alternating sources of different elemental damage, but we have 3 since I am using all 3 elements of Wild Strike and they alternate, meaning that Trinity is up 100% of the time. 60 rage stacks, not yet pressing the Berserk button, haven't put Berserk in my build because not yet necessary, but absolutely will be doing that. And then some Hydrosphere action as well, which I think is going to be a single target increase thanks to the additional strikes, which will be hitting the Hydrosphere as well as the boss, and then meaning you get an additional sort of ranged source of damage there as opposed to just the melee hit. Since that's, I think, kind of how Wild Strike works, similar fashion to a Frostblades for some of the attacks. So it should be a single target increase. I don't know, we'll see how we go. So far, so good. It's been pretty damn dirty. The other good thing about Hydrosphere is that, especially with Berserker, you don't currently have a very nice way of getting your stacks of rage up before a boss fight. You can get the 60 stacks of rage up not too badly during mapping. It just takes a few seconds here or there, few attacks. But with Hydrosphere and Chainhook, you can actually build up your stacks of rage before going into a fight, and thus having max rage stacks as a Berserker before a fight starts. Likewise, you can use the Chainbreaker Keystone from Lethal Pride, but that involves quite a bit of mana regeneration scaling that I didn't want to force onto this character on top of all the other damage stats we're going for too. So there will be quite a lot of deeps, there will be some taking of damage, but conventionally every Berserker I've built this way just doesn't have an issue taking damage because killing things is actually the most defensive thing you can possibly do in this game, and if we kill everything quickly, we'll be just fine. So I want to go ahead and show you how I've built the character so far, because we haven't really done much content mapping or endgame wise, and just a little bit of that showcase of what it looks like is the best we can do currently. So the character we've got here so far is level 88, called Just One More Harvest Copium. Copium's like a emote inhaling some copium. Anyway, you get it, right? Currently 6.3k life, which is actually quite a lot for what I've got to work with so far. Taken plenty of life nodes on the tree, but we are going to be paper thin as God intended in the Berserker sort of category. Lots of rage, 60 rage, which gives you a lot of your damage scaling and attack speed, the 40% more damage, and then the last 2 points are for leech, since it's pretty convenient to cover mana and life leech, as well as getting some attack speed occasionally, though Flawless Savagery is pretty good as well. Blitz is, of course, the maximum attack speed. Like, yes, you can do it, but it's typically wrong. It's not really an upgrade, it's more of a side grade. Like, you can trade some damage for a bunch more speed. And we've already got a lot of speed, so decided not to go that route, and instead you get much beefier things with the rage route. Otherwise, the tree's pretty just, you know, stock standard Berserker tree. You're getting some life, you're getting some crits, and some crits, and some crits. And you got yourself a bit of damage wheels here, and a lot of our damage is going to come from pretty unethical harvest crafted crit multi-jewels. So you can typically get harvest crafted jewels if you just, you know, play the game for long enough and use some of your crafts on non-mod to mod, so non-crit to crit, non-cold to cold, etc. And get the right mods for crits, get the right mods for multis, and eventually just make things like that, or like this. So you have a fractured 5% life, you get a couple of rolls, and then you turn one into something else, and all of a sudden you got yourself what looks like a busted as fuck jewel, but they're not that hard to get with the right harvest crafts. In any case, that's the passive tree for now. Actually, also the sort of cluster. Yeah, large clusters aren't really shit. There's not much you can do, so just a bit of extra accuracy and damage off of a dual wield. And then the crit ones here, just for a bit of crit and double damage consistency, leading into a few smalls, and I'm using these to get dexterity on these small ascendancy, small little passive nodes, because getting dexterity is going to be pretty tough, since we need to use a jeweled foil in our offhand. Currently, we are built around Saviour. If you are still new to the Saviour, basically, Sword that drops off Cirrus that doesn't have that much damage by itself, but it does create 2 copies of yourself that then use the attack that it copied at half the damage. And since you have 2 clones, it basically ends up giving you double your damage in the long run. Though it is a weak enough weapon by itself, you then partner it with something pretty damn good. Not this. This is a leveling weapon I was using since level 38. Still fine, but I've been working on crafting a sword of my own to just make a really thick build out of. Here we go. Hello. As soon as the stash wants to work. With Merciless, Jeweled Foil of Fame. So after a bunch of alterations, we got this. And then I'm going to regal it, end up multi-modding it, and probably slam speed, which is an extremely sort of rare and expensive harvest craft that I managed to get. Since I'm going to slam speed when there's nothing but 1 prefix left over, that means that it will hit the Warlord hybrid speed mod, and that should make a pretty juicy foil. Anything over 400 DPS as a foil, which isn't too hard to get, will end up destroying the game, I think, if it's in your offhand. So I'm going for a pretty big one. Obviously, you can go as high or as low as you want. It should still work out, I think. So, you know, foil crafting, you can do some harvest, you can do some alteration. You ideally want the Warlord mod for the biggest possible foils. And yeah, then we got a chest. Currently, it's just pure life, but it is a hunter chest. So I'm going to put attack crit onto this thing as a suffix with, you know, harvest. If you just augment attack, for example, do non-attack to attack, non-crit to crit, it'll currently be rolling the attack crit. If it's non-crit to crit, it can also give us spell crit, which we don't want. Also, if I currently aug caster onto this, it's only got 1 spare prefix, so it will get a additional curse mod. And that's probably what I'm going to do, because currently I have 1 ring that has elemental weakness on hit. It's a synthesis implicit. These things go for like 40C, and since I needed a lot of dexterity, I decided to craft off of that and then make my own with lots of dexterity. So we've got this guy, and then this is just a placeholder, but I will put an assassin mark ring there to have 2 different curses. And Assassin Mark is the more important one, and then we have it with the additional curse chest eventually. Got gloves with additional strike, So that just means that we won't use Ancestral Call, because that paired with that gives us quite a bit more range. No need for Ancestral Call. You can also elevate this one so that strike skills give you 2 additional nearby targets. That will cost you quite a bit more with Maven Orbing, though depending on certain Maven Orb results with Hunter Gloves, you could actually end up making money. For example, I tried to elevate Unnerve and then Strike skills, so I had those 2 mods. Ended up hitting the Unnerve instead, and turns out that was worth like 23 exalts. Just the base Unnerve that people need to use to awaken Orb some fancier, bigger gloves. So I didn't end up Maven Orbing anything for myself, and this is the resulting glove so far, just a bit of chaos spam. Gonna put some other suffixes on there in the end. Attack speed, a resist, accuracy, you know, who cares. But yeah, additional strike. Some pretty basic belt, can make 100,000 different Stygians through Harvest. Reduce flight charges, a little bit of res, and then LE damage with life. Got some Hunter boots, but I wanted to put Tailwind on them. Didn't manage to do that. And just some life, resist, strength. Probably going to leave it at that, since we do have a nice enchant on these from Lab. Abyssus do have a Wild Strike, beam, chains an additional 6 times. That's not very important. I didn't honestly notice much of a difference when I started using that. I only recently started using Abyssus as well. It's fine without it. You can use, you know, one of the new sort of ritual helms. None of them are particularly good for us at the moment. An All's helm, Crown of the Crystal King, is pretty damn good, but I can't afford to drop that many sockets, I don't think. So Abyssus is the logical choice for huge damage and fun. But yeah, can't really go past an Abyssus for extreme amounts of damage, since we are scaling Flat Fizz to make Saviour better, to make a fast attacking weapon better, and ultimately a bunch of crit multi. You then also grab an amulet. Currently this one has extra cold and extra lightning. So to do that, I started out with a cold mod on Shaper, a lightning mod on Crusader, and then Awaken Orb smash them together. You can buy a cold and lightning, like Shaper amulet, for maybe like 40C or something. It's not going to be super good. This one isn't that good yet either, but I will be re-rolling suffixes until I hit something else. Otherwise, you can just buy a Fizz's extra lightning, Fizz's extra cold amulet with some crit multi or with some Fizz damage off the market, and it will do roughly about the same damage as what mine currently does anyway. But we can make this one into quite a bit bigger one with a bit more crafting. So far, it's just okay. And then, of course, Lion's Raw Taste of Hate and a couple of flasks. The setup here at the moment is Wild Strike, Multi-Strike, Trinity, Inspiration, LE damage, and crit. I will obviously try and ditch crit in the end. Not obviously, sorry. I will try and ditch crit in the end once I get crit over here and a bit more crit throughout the character. At that point, I'll probably put in close combat. The way Trinity works, though, if you are unfamiliar, is you want to get to your max stacks of resonance, and it's pretty easy to do as long as you are alternating 2 elements. So if you have 3 elements in your build, that's terrific, and you're a trial elemental build, it's not going to give you Trinity by default. It needs to alternate between elemental damage dealing the highest amount of damage. So your cold has to deal the highest amount, then your fire has to deal the highest amount, or fire then lightning, etc. So you have to have the highest amount of one element being the source of damage, and then a different element being the source of damage as your highest amount. So it's easiest to do with an elemental hit that picks one element then the other, or a Wild Strike that's picking one element then the other, as long as you're scaling off of something like physical, or a Void Forge, which is rotating between its 300% extra mod, stuff like that. That's how you can make use of Trinity. So it's not something you can just shove into almost every single build that has lots of elemental damage. It has to have some alternating things. You only need 2 elements for it to alternate though, not all 3, because 2 elements will be enough to get all 3 of the resonance stacks going, if you think about it. Very powerful support though, otherwise 50% more damage and 20 LE pen is huge, and in this build it gives us a lot of our elemental penetration right now, and a huge boost to things like elemental hit as well. So that's currently what we've got going on. We have Hatred, Enlighten, Vitality, Herald of Ash. Do kind of need some Vitality to counteract the Rage degen. Multi-Totem, Ancestral War Chief, Ancestral Protector, as always. Love to have our large totem setup. Faster attacks, Fortify, Leap Slam. Got a Summon Stone Golem. Currently using the Chain Hook, Hydrosphere, Blood Rage, and Dash, Enduring Cry, Second Wind. So, the Hydrosphere, like I said, should provide an additional target for us to Wild Strike off of when we have single target. It is also very convenient for things like rituals and harvests to be able to pre-fire, because right now your Wild Strike doesn't actually do anything when you're just attacking air. But if you have your Hydrosphere there, you can actually start your attacks and have things chaining off of it and all that. But just like I said from the start of the video, you can use it to build up Rage to begin with your Chain Hook, as seen here. So we can get to 60 stacks of Rage fairly quickly. I need to get minus mana cost somewhere just so I can attack freely, probably on a ring, maybe a Conqueror's Efficiency, I think it's called, jewel. But you can get your Rage up pretty quickly that way, and then we'll use Berserk eventually for big damage as well. That's currently the character. Hopefully I scale it quite a bit higher. I will be putting in money and harvest and all that. Typically a lot of the characters this league will have better, fancier, bigger gear, because it's all harvest craftable. It's up to you to spend the time to make it as good as it is. I'm going to be, you know, putting in like 24 hours worth of playtime to every character, and in that time, with a bit of extra money in harvest, I can usually make a full, complete, big, beefy character. So if you spend quite a bit longer than that, it shouldn't be too much harder to also harvest your way into such a character. So don't be that deterred by price tags or anything. But so far, nothing too special going on here. If you try and harvest craft or make everything yourself from scratch, it might be quite a bit more expensive, but otherwise, with the right amount of playtime, it's all pretty achievable this league. We'll see how we go in the next video for the end game. I think it should be okay, but Wild Strike, not the best single target skill, so here's hoping it can take on all the end game, especially as a Berserker, this paper thin. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.